going to start now. And welcome to the FACEHAMMER Advent Calendar Show. And in this one, we're going to talk about Celestial Vindicators, Skyborne Slayers. And Les is going to take you through his army.
Yes. So yeah, this army I played my first ever tournament with at Age of Sigmar, which was about 5 years. I think so. I mean, I'm sure the internet will tell me it's not, but I still think it's relevant, which is the most important thing. And it's all about me. So essentially, it's a Skyborne Slayers Celestial Vindicator drop, and I'll explain why I've done that as I go. It's a 4-drop army because most of your army fits inside the Skyborne Slayers drop, Skyborne Slayers formation or battalion. I'll keep calling them formations or battalions. For those that don't know, the thing with Skyborne Slayers that makes it really good is one of the few battalions in the game now that allow you to be closer than 9 inches from your opponent. So you pick a point on the battlefield, and then you have within 12 inches, not wholly within 12 inches of that point, you then can deploy the entire army. That's the only downside to it, is that you have to deploy it as one.
How far away from the enemy?
5 inches from the enemy,
right.
So you don't have to be 9 inches away, so it makes your charges and stuff a lot more reliable. One of the other benefits of the battalion is that everything in that battalion is immune to battle shock, so you can get away with taking bigger units of the paladins, because the paladins they do like struggle a little bit when you use a couple of them, and then battle shock takes a couple more off. It becomes quite painful because you're paying a premium for those models.
And this battalion, War Squad Battalion, that's right, it's not formation.
War Squad Battalion, yeah.
It lives, where does it live, if people wanted to find it?
It lives in the Grand Alliance Order Book, which I don't think you can buy anymore. No. But the points for it are still available in the General's Handbook 2020. I'm not sure it's available in the Stormcast book, because I haven't got the actual Stormcast book anymore because my nephew stole it from me.
But you stole it, you gave it to him to inspire him, rather than him stealing.
He likes the gold lads. Should be the turquoise boys all day long. But yeah, it's that. I think that's the only place you can get it unless you pay for it on the app. I believe you can still buy it from the app if you purchase it through the app for, like, a couple of pounds or whatever it's going to be like. So the list is I'll do the units outside of the battalion first. So I've taken the Celestant Prime because he's brilliant. I've taken 2 Knight Venators because they are very fast. They've got good armor save. They put out loads of not loads of damage, but they put out consistent damage akin to an extra unit of Adjudicators because of the 3 shots with a bow, 3 shots with a bird. Plus, if any one of those star-fated arrows spike, it can also cause your opponents a lot of problems. In the formation, I've got the Lord Celestant on foot. I've then got 2 units of Liberators, 2 units of Judicators, 10 Decimators, 10 Protectors, which then becomes part of the battalion, Skyborne Slayers battalion. You have to take because they're Celestial Vindicators, which I'm going to get to and explain now. You have to take the items on the first hero, I believe it is. I can't remember the wording of it exactly, but I always put them on the Celestant because he's quite an aggressive hero. He has to drop with the rest of the army. I tend to sort of use him as a try and one-shot an enemy hero. So he's got I believe it's the command trait. I'm just going to check on the phone because I always want to make sure I get this correct. So he's got the command trait Single-Minded Fury, which is any 6s to hit do an additional pip of damage. And then he's got the artifact, which is the Storm Rage Blade, which is you can choose to give him pick one of his weapons and choose to give that an additional 2 attacks. So he's got quite a lot of attacks anyway when he charges. He gets a buff to his attacks profile when he charges in. So it's quite handy if you're going in with I usually put it on the sword because it gets I believe he's up to 7 attacks then when he charges in. The reason I've taken Celestial Vindicators is it's got a really nice command ability, which is pick a unit within, I believe it's 12 inches. I'll double check because I've got it in front of me. Pick a unit wholly within 18 inches, and that you can give them an additional attack. And that can't be stacked because of an FAQ, but that's really handy. If the prime drops down, you've got an additional command point because you've purchased one plus the command point for taking a battalion. It's really handy to the prime that additional attack if it needs to when it comes down, or particularly if your decimators are going into a big unit and you want to maximize because of their attacks. Obviously they gain an attack for each model within 2 inches. So that can be quite good, particularly if you've got the prime on one corner, or even if you put both paladins in. Your protectors have got quite a lot of attacks, your decimators have got quite a lot of attacks. You've got 2 command points, you put one on either, and then it gives you like quite a lot of, I mean, they're not high damage output because they're only rend 1, damage 1, unless you spike with the storm surge on the protectors when you're fighting monsters. So that's kind of like why I've got that. And the innate ability with Celestial Vindicators is that they reroll 1s on the turn they charge. So basically your entire army on the turn it charges is rerolling 1s to hit. It just makes them, I think, quite a lot. They put out quite a lot of damage as long as you can get through armor, and it's quite a lot of high volume of attacks. So yeah, it's I think it's quite interesting. You can do the alpha strike if you need to. I mean, admittedly, it's only 4 drops, so your opponent may, you might get out dropped. Particularly in the current meta, if people are in. If people are sort of what's the term when they sit on boats, the Caradon overlords, they're like
they
garrison the boats.
Yeah, they fly high.
When they garrison the boats, if you get an attack for every model within the boat because of the garrison rules. Because when you attack it, so your decimators go into the boats, you just ruin them. Which is quite cool. And because you've taken a battalion, you get an additional item. So I always put the luck stone on one of the Venators, because if you get that star-fated arrow through on a monster, it hits on 2s. If you need to, you can reroll the hit or the wound or the damage.
Just to explain, like the drop, so like with Stormcast, normally you can put stuff in the sky, and that's alternate 1 on the table, 1 in the sky, or is up to half the units deployed, and you can come down in the movement phase before turn 3 or against the end of start of movement phase or end of the movement phase. Skyborne's a bit different, isn't it? So I believe you don't have a choice; you have to go in the sky.
Skyborne, I can, it goes, you deploy the battalion or as in the sky. So you'd still need to have, so you'd have to put one of the Venators on the table because they would be outside of it. So you can put the prime has to go in the sky. The battalion all goes in the sky and gets around the one on the table, one off the table.
Yeah, but you can't decide to deploy it on the table, can you?
I believe you can.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were restricted because if you played against someone who can spread out and go first, you might have a bit of an issue.
I think you can still split it like most battalions. It doesn't have to.
But
when they're in the sky,
has to land at once.
Has to go together. So I can't drip feed it down. It all comes down in one go. So that's the downside of it, and it has to be in like quite a compact area. Well, I mean, it's not that compact because you could string it out, can't you?
Just kind of making it like starring out from a central point often.
Just like get one protector just within 12. It's not holy, and then you just go like string it out, so you can cover pretty much.
What believe, and I'm going from very years ago when I used to play against people using this all the time. The prime has a bravery mechanic when he drops, and so do the
prime does have a bravery. Yeah, so you're -2 bravery when in range of decimators, and the prime is
+2 to your battle shock, I think.
+2 to your battle shock. It's one or the other. So you get a bravery.
It's a 4, isn't it? It's a 4-point swing.
Quite a big
on
deal,
the turn
really.
they drop, which could be pretty devastating if you were.
It can be, unless it's never really come into much play with me because as I've come down, usually first turn, most people are spending their command points to stop me wiping out units, but it has played into my favor in certain editions. A lot of people forget about the decimator debuff. That's the big one, because all you need to do is clip away a couple of units, and you're like, right, well, you're -2 plus I've killed X amount of models.
And with with Skyborne, is it any paladins or does it have to be those types?
Has to be protectors, has to be decimators.
Right, I thought so.
You can't put retributors
so you can't put retributors or evocators in. Whatever they're called.
It's I think you miss not having the retributors in there, because just that the more wound output from the retributors is really, really good. But it gives you quite a lot of attacks, like quite a lot of volume of attacks, and if you can get your protectors into specific enemy units, like your monsters against giants, it'd be really good because I believe they've changed it to 6s to wound now. It used to be 6s to hit, did D6 damage, whereas I think it's 6s to wound.
It's solid. Really... I mean, what I like about protectors is 3-inch reach, so you can deliver. Because when I played against, I think it was Warrior Brotherhood, you had a choice of what paladin. So you had people who put retributors in, and they come into, but they're in a long stringy line, Whereas with protectors, you can have like the decimators kind of spread out, and then the protectors can be on an end, like in a very tight formation. Because I think, 3-inch reach is just really underrated.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. It's also awkward for your opponent, right? Because they might want to spread out to minimize the amount of attacks that are within 2 inches, but then that means that if you decide to go into that section with your prime, there's less attacks coming back towards him because they weren't shoulder to shoulder or whatever. So you can put your opponent in kind of janky situations and then just call their bluff and do whatever is the most irritating thing for them.
Also, one thing to remember when you do come down with Skyborne Slayers, the generic Stormcast rules still apply. So obviously shock and awe. So on the turn they drop, it's -1 to hit. So you're going in with quite a lot of bodies, and then you're going to be -1 to hit them. Well, only on the turn that they drop. So when your opponent has their turn.
And there's some play around with the list as well. Like, for example, I think from the hero side of things, you could put a Vexler in for reroll charges.
Yeah, I used to take an Incantor, as Byron just said, as well.
Or you could take the Azeros for reroll 1s to hit, because that's combat and shooting now.
Yeah, that's actually...
So, but like say, like double Venator, I mean, I think that's the nice bit about the army. Although you're using a formation, you've still got like 400, 500 points outside to play around with.
You can play with, yeah.
And I think because the point drop now, you can actually get in that extra hero and a command point, or because the Paladins came down, didn't they? Liberators came down.
Yeah.
Adjudicators came down.
I do think that the Decimators are the unsung models in the Stormcast book. I think they struggle like every Stormcast army does with once the models are on the table. It's how do you then impact the game if you've because they're not very maneuverable. Generally, it's nice to have that Vexler banner in with the pennant of the Stormbringer to be able to move them around, which is something that I always used to take. Again, which I discussed on like one of the earlier shows. We talked about an Evocator list, which would be Evocators drop, try and charge. They get a reroll charge, and then you get to like redeploy them. Again, I'm not saying it's going to win you. It's
a fun
army tournaments
themed, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, at last year's Blood and Glory, I beat Slanesh at the height with them because I mean, I put that down to the fact that I know the army and I know Slanesh quite well. And the games that I lost, I definitely could have won. Like I lost to Sean with his Flesh Eater Quartz army, which is Doppelganger Cloak caught me out and didn't manage to kill.
I got it for you, bro. Don't worry.
Yeah, cheers, mate. And then I lost to a Deepkin player in 3 places of power, which would be if I'd have just killed all his heroes, I also won. But
is that what you managed to win now?
Yeah, well, mate, and also it's like you just never know if you're gonna whiff those attacks. I just think that there is, if you get the right run of it, it competes against most people just due to the amount of damage output you can do, and it also makes people play weird when you've only got one model on the table. They haven't got the thing to sort of spread out. I'll just be like, here's a Venator, everything else off the table.
Load of shooting to back it up as well. That really, I think people will be concentrating so much on what you can do in that shock and awe turn that they forget what happens when you add up some pretty high quality long range shooting for 4 turns. Yeah,
and that's why I like the double Venator, because they're the movement, the armor save. In cover they're on a 2-up. They've just got like that consistent shooting. They're almost, I'd say they're probably the same as having another unit adjudicators, but one that can move with a better save.
Good in the hero missions as well if you can get them on a bit of terrain near the objective, because a 2-up save they're really tough to get rid of. I really like the Azeros. I just really like the model, so I would definitely slot one in because I just think he's cool. But
wait until we get to the Stormcast Allies show then.
Well, I think that'll do for this. These are just going to be little short shows, one a day up to lead up to Christmas. So. Try and spread some Age of Sigmar cheer, some Warhammer Age of Sigmas to steal the tone from the event that Carl Smith runs for the which is what we talked about when we first went. So our first Age of Sigmar tournament, for Les was Age of Sigmas. So
Age of Sigmas, with Carl and Kieran and stuff like that. Good one.
Yeah, so been a staple. Unfortunately, we won't get to it this year because of all the stuff going on. But we thought we'd do this. Is we're going to do a show like this every day. So thanks for watching. In the comments below, tell us how you'd spend those extra 400 points. Let us know if you would take the Prime or you'd take something else, or you put ballistas in. What would you do? Do you want to put in a Azeros? Would you want a Vexler? And any questions about how it works, just pop them in. Les will get back to you. So
Yeah,
let us know about. Absolutely, let us know suggestions for the future Christmas content as well, because there's plenty of days left to go. So pop your suggestions below, and we'll give it 10 to 15 minutes of our time.
I'll create a Discord channel in the server, so if people want to post stuff about the Advent shows, they can put suggestions in there. But thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow.
See you in a bit. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.